Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Tipple's virtual wine tasting with Elizabeth and Jeff Vaudrey, the owners of Tipple's Brews and Wines, Gainesville, Florida. Well, let's get into some tasty wine. I think we might need to put our volume up a little bit more.
Okay, but this is your computer. Where's your volume?
There we go. Probably need more than that. It seems to go by tiny increments. Okay, excellent. So this week, we are going to be drinking the Bootleg Prequel. So this is the sister wine to the Bootleg red blend that we had last week. Last week was a Napa red blend,
Right.
A little bit of actually Sonoma juice in there from Knights Valley. This week's all Sonoma. So Sonoma, a little cooler, a little more elegant generally, depending on what your definition of elegance, because that could be, but I tend to think of it as the more feminine of the two valleys, even though they're side by side.
Okay.
So I call this the sister bottle.
Okay.
And it does have women on the label. So
all right.
There we go.
I like it.
Right?
And I do actually now see the password often. So I like the gossip that goes along with that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right. Then why don't we jump over to the slides?
Okay.
Okay, so here we are. The Bootleg Prequel red blend ratings. Jeb Dunnick 90. Not a huge amount of this wine made, but it is made by a significant producer, which would be why it was put out for ratings.
Okay.
We'll talk about that at the very end. It'd be like the reveal. Who's behind the scenes on this guy? Food pairings. This is a Syrah Petite Sirah red blend.
I actually remembered that.
Oh.
I was asked what kind of wine we were drinking this week, and I remembered it was, I didn't remember what it was called, but I remembered it was Syrah Petite Sirah.
Nice. So
yep.
Big, rich, but with some tartness. All right. Lamb and mushroom risotto, savory Brussels sprouts, mushroom and blue cheese brunch pie. That's all together. I gave a link at the end of the last week.
Oh, that's right. You did.
Because I know that's a mouthful and you're like, really? I've not seen this piece. It exists. All right. So I have proven it. I've been asked about these things, whether I just make them up. I don't. Grilled eggplant or steak of any cut.
All right.
They will all work with this. All right. So now go ahead and stop the share here and I will pour you a glass of wine. Like I said, this is Syrah Petite Sirah. The blend percentages are, look at that dark, beautiful beastie. 85% Syrah, 15% Petite Sirah. We'll talk about those two grapes in just a little bit. Alcohol content is a full, robust 15%. So
I like that.
Before I talk about ageability, take a sniff, take a sip, and you guys will know what I'm talking
about. What vintage is this?
This is the 16.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we're already 7 years into it then.
Yes.
Okay.
And their newest release is the 17. So we're still working on the 16, and with good reason. When you sip this, you'll see why.
Okay. And Paul has a question. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, sorry, no, not necessarily a question, just comment, because we opened ours 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I think
ish.
so.
And then right off the bat, Emma got included and said she was getting the cherries, the black cherries, the right?
From this, yeah.
Right.
Dark fruit.
Wow.
Dark fruit. And
Emma.
then 15.
And we both talked about what she would say baking spices.
Right. Yeah, she said
Right.
cinnamon. And then, so now 15, 20 minutes later, now we're getting into smokiness.
Right. But I also feel like there's something, I definitely get smoke and earth for sure now, not 20 minutes ago, but I feel like there's something flowery, or I guess floral, maybe.
I think that you are completely on the right track, and
But it's opened up a lot in 20 minutes. Good. Like I told Paul, I said, I feel like it's really changed a lot in a really short amount of time, which is interesting.
Yeah,
but
and that's
it's really good.
Kind of why I raised my hand, is like, it evolved very quickly.
Right.
Or at least
Nice.
that's what it felt like.
Right. It's not being stingy. It is a new world wine, right? But it is a big wine. So it is evolving, which is nice. It's not, there are new world wines that don't evolve at all. Right.
Right.
But not this one. This one's a little nicer quality. It is going to evolve. And it is two very expressive grapes. So observation number one is it's not hard to smell this wine. It's very aromatic, right? It
Right.
jumps right up out of the glass, is a very common term in the wine world. Jumps right out of the glass, right? Yeah.
We have some chat too. Chris said chocolate covered cherry on the nose,
Yep.
and then herbal taste, dried herbs, somewhat bitter herbs, but not sure which one.
Okay, so let me throw one where you guys keep, like kind of bounce around, you're like in the herbs. So we've got blueberries on the floral, violets. That's where I would go.
How long has ours
Over.
been open? Sorry.
Ours has been open for 30 minutes.
Okay.
Some smokiness. Black tea is that thing where it's like a
Oh,
little bit
yeah,
floral
that's
and a little bit earthy.
Mhm.
Black tea. It's a really interesting one where when you finally kind of wrap your mind around it, you're like, oh yes,
Yeah, that's
okay,
it.
there it is. There's the, okay,
Yeah.
yep. There's gonna be some pepperiness in here. Syrah has pepper.
Mhm.
And the Petite Sirah has big fruit. They both provide tannin, but particularly the Petite Sirah. So is this gripping my palate? Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. Does it taste like dried fruit and figs or more fresh fruit with a nice fresh tartness on the finish?
Are you actually asking me?
No,
Or are you just
this
throwing
is
it
what
out?
I would ask myself
Okay.
as I
all right.
go in. So am I,
Is this rhetorical or you're actually?
I mean, and you can throw it out there.
Okay,
All right.
wait, we have a chat first.
Okay.
So, Chris, Robin, one of them, like the black tea call, I don't find it super smoky, just a little bit. Theirs has been open for about 40 minutes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I would say Syrah can be incredibly smoky,
Mhm.
but I would say it's a little minimal in here, right? It can
Mhm.
also be incredibly peppery, but I would say it's there.
It's there for sure,
Mhm.
but I don't find it particularly
Right.
peppery. I find the tannins very grippy.
Tannins are nice and grippy.
Mhm.
I will say that for a big dark fruit, it's still fresh fruit,
Sure.
right? It's not dried fruit. It's not sweet. So this guy has some acid. So we've got tannin, we have acid, we have high alcohol.
Mhm.
That's going to give us really good ageability. Right? They all come together. So we're talking about a wine ready to drink now, even though
So we're at 7.
we're at 7 years
So you're saying
already.
15?
I'd say you need, like 10 plus is technically what
Okay.
you would go, but I'm like, yeah, this can hang around a
I
while
was
long.
actually going to guess 15.
15, I think, is a
Yes.
great way to.
Oh, especially when you told me like it was 15%.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
it was 15%, no.
Yeah, because this is still lively, right? We're 7 years in, it's lively. This
It's
is
still
not,
lively,
this is
even at
not, on
7
the-
years
it's not diminishing, I know, right?
Okay, so, Chris said, now that I think about it, sipped a little while ago, just cause, and thought it was smoky, but it's super opened up,
Mhm.
much more fruity.
Mhm.
And then Jerry had to ease the cork out of the bottle.
Okay. Just because you were polite.
Just as Robin took a sip too.
Well, I kind of stretched it.
It's
a
a
little.
gentleman.
Gentleman like
Jerry
that.
is a gentleman.
Yes. Mhm. But Southern gentlemen talk like that.
All right,
Ready?
so blueberries, red fruits, I'd say there's raspberry and blackberry in here. And blackberry kind of is a great call when you got that darker fruit, but you got some tartness.
Mhm.
Like even if you didn't say black cherry, raspberry, blackberry,
Mhm.
if you go blackberry, because they can be tart, but they've got that dark fruitiness too, as well. So all those wonderful things, I think they're showing up in here. All right.
I have an aside,
Mhm.
because we do have some blackberries and strawberries in the refrigerator.
Mhm.
So would that work well with this then? Or would it be too fruity then?
No, it would be complementary.
Would it be?
So it would be okay.
Okay.
Now, their tartness is going to even eclipse this.
Mhm.
So it's going to overwhelm your palate for a little bit and
Okay.
you'll taste the wine a little less.
Okay.
Unless you anchored it with something like a dark chocolate at the same time
Mhm.
or a smooth brie at the same time.
Okay.
So in that case, why the brie?
Why the brie, Jeff?
Good question. All right. So you've got the lactose smoothing out across your palate, but the
Mhm.
acid of the fruit and the wine playing to break that up.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And the fat in the cheese.
And now I have a either dumb question or something you may not be able to answer. I don't know.
It could be.
Okay, so
That way.
when we away from wine, let's say, when we're eating something spicy, you and I,
Mhm.
I can eat much, much more spicy things than you can and be
Right.
fine without like and crying and all that, right?
Right.
Okay, so tearing, sorry, not crying, but anyway,
I don't cry.
right, so when you're saying like it's gonna overwhelm
I'm
your
sweating
palate,
through my eyeballs.
yeah, I'm just wondering, like, wouldn't that be different for different people though? Like, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, somebody who can take a lot of spice,
Mhm.
maybe you can handle more, you know?
Okay.
Or-
So you're saying,
Like, because you're saying fruit and this would overwhelm your palate.
oh, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, it's going to be a little different.
It's
You're
still
right.
gonna change. the
Everyone's,
taste of everything.
yeah, so these are generalizations, within a range, right? Let's call it within a range, and there are going to be people that fall 20% on either side. But it should generally point you in the right direction. But I
Okay.
agree with what your point is completely in that there is such a spectrum of taste perception
Mhm.
in the world,
Mhm.
right? That makes sense. So yeah, it's a direction. It's not a directive,
Okay,
right? Yeah. Mhm.
all right, cool. I'm gonna try it with that afterward. Tell you if it overwhelms me or not.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
You can try it now. I'm not afraid.
All right.
All right.
Oh, the cork. I'm like, what was a little crumbly? Okay, so the cork was a little crumbly, but you didn't have
Interesting.
any issues getting it out.
Yeah, because
Okay.
this is it's just it's a, not a synthetic. This is a
Composite.
composite cork. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it's looking, mine's in fantastic shape. Mine's looks like you'd have to take.
Jeff's cork is
frickin-
in fantastic shape.
Yeah, it looks like you'd have to blast it out of there. I mean, so that's kind of interesting. I don't know. Did you use a traditional waiter's key or something a little more, a little more traditional? Interesting. I
Yeah,
don't know.
just a waiter's key, just like a regular one. It was cork is fine. It was just sort of like, oh, it's like it was like at the toward the end, it was just like, oh, huh, there's like some like cork sediment, the cork itself toward the end. I was just like, oh, it was a little, dusty and stuff like that. Just kind of wiped it down and it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I'd have yanked it out, the bottom quarter would have split right about there.
Mm.
Huh.
That's the way mine was anyway, but I used it out, it came out fine.
Okay.
I'm
right.
sorry that Chris and Jerry's corks
Yeah.
aren't in as good of shape.
Nothing like a bad cork, I'll tell you.
The Snyders have a question. First, they just waved. And they
Okay.
have a question.
Both the sediment and the wine itself are just about as black as night.
Right.
Oh, yeah. For sure. So which grape is that a reflection of?
Well,
Both?
you're dealing with two
Very dark.
intense dark grapes, right?
Okay.
Grown in the right way.
Okay.
Right, so Petite Sirah is particularly dark. Syrah, grown in the warmer climates, more New World style, is also very dark. So in this case, we're dealing with two very dark and one, a very dark and an extremely dark grape because they're grown in California.
Okay.
So Syrah does have this flexibility where if it's grown in cooler climates, and this is not a warm climate, this is more of a medium climate
Okay.
for Syrah, but in Northern Rhone in France, it can actually look almost like a darker Pinot Noir. So it can be a little lighter, but in this case, the Syrah is going to be in its medium level.
Mhm.
So it will be very dark. And then the Petite Sirah will be in its prime and it will be extremely dark. So that Petite Sirah, which we'll talk about, there's nothing small about Petite Sirah except the size of the grape, right? So intense grape.
Mhm.
So between the two, you've got an inky beast on the way. The only thing you could do more to it is add Zinfandel.
Okay,
All right.
share.
Yes, please.
All right, so we'll talk about the label.
Let's-
No, I'm interested because I remember last week's label with the X-ray.
Right.
And now it's the bootleg prequel. I'm just wondering if this has anything to do with pre-prohibition then, or not. They just. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great question. It's a very reasonable question. It's a question I wish I had the answer to.
Okay.
It's a question they did not provide any answers to.
All right, great.
So this will be much more about the wine itself, because I would love to give you I don't know why. I could find nothing on why it's called the
All
prequel.
right. Huh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, front label, very good looking, but does not help identify the wine, same as last week, right? It just says bootleg and prequel. Right, now, this is not a criticism, it just is,
It's
right?
like the tiniest back label we've ever had, I think.
Excuse me. Yeah, no, other than last week, yeah.
Well, I don't remember last.
Yeah, it was the same. So bootleg, prequel, Sonoma, so it does say, okay, so when I talk about looking for specificity,
Mhm.
say, okay, this is Sonoma and that is the highly respected area. Right, so at least we know that. Vinted and bottled, so this winemaker made this wine him or herself. So there is that. They didn't just buy some juice and then put a name on it, right? Which does happen more often than you might think. There's no grown or estate on these, so they are purchased grapes. So they're purchased grapes. There, it doesn't give you a lot. Like you look at this, you don't know this is Syrah and Petite Sirah, right? All you know, you don't even know. It just says red wine, right? So.
You need advice with this one, or you need an app or something?
Right, this one is
Okay.
one to be directed toward, is my point. Once again, I'm not saying it's criticism, I'm saying it makes sense that if you were in a store with no other information, there would be a lot of questions left.
Mhm.
But you would say, all right, this is Sonoma and it's a red blend, but they grow a lot of things in Sonoma, right? This could be Pinot Noir and Zinfandel, which would be really weird, right? Anyway, so it does leave a lot of options, but very attractive. I think it actually, when we talk about in the end why this wine was made and the amount that was made,
Mhm.
it'll make a little bit more sense.
Okay.
So,
All
all
right.
right.
Cool.
but it does leave questions. So legitimately, my rating would be
Mhm.
need some help identifying, right?
Okay.
Better to be in a store like Tipple's. We can tell you why this is something that might apply to you.
Okay. Yeah, I do want to make a comment to everyone. When you see me looking to the side, it's because I have a second screen, so the chat is pulled out and all of you are pulled out. Do you want to say what you wanted to go? So I put up the second screen and I was like, yeah, Chris keeps telling me I have to have a second screen. So Jeff said,
I want to label it, suck it, Chris. We have a second screen now. Are you happy? Now she's looking to the left. Though it might be mirrored. I don't even know. So anyway,
in real life, I'm looking to those.
true.
Ready?
Yes. All right, so let's talk about the grapes a little bit. So dominant grape is Syrah, also known as Shiraz, right? Shiraz. Australia is the Shiraz, right? Even though a little bit in South Africa now. Tends to be the warmer growth version of Syrah is Shiraz. The coolest growth tends to come from the Northern Rhone in France, which is close to where it originates. So it can run from incredibly inky to something that looks almost like Pinot Noir that you can see right through it. We're not seeing that version of it tonight. So, like I said, origin is in the southwest of France. We'll look at the map in a little bit. It's a cross between two obscure grapes, the Dureza and Mondieu Blanche. So
So is that a red and a white?
a red and a white grape
Okay.
making an intense red,
Just like Cab Sauv.
like Cab Sauv, which is the parents are
Cab Franc and Sauvignon Blanc.
boom.
I don't like it when you do that to me though.
Oh, sorry. Given a reward.
That was my reward.
Yeah.
To be put on the spot.
Oh, I thought you didn't like the like me saying, yeah, you nailed it. Like,
Oh,
wow.
that's fine. Just like, you know,
Okay. I thought we moved past that. You've been killing it.
no.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes, please. All right. So flavors, right? Blueberry, black plum. So when I talked about red, and red, I think plum is a good call on that. The milk chocolate, tobacco, and green peppercorn. I think black peppercorn should also be on there. But if you're a little northern growth, you're going to get a little more green peppercorn.
Okay.
So dry, definitely. Full bodied, yes. Medium to high tannins, yes. Medium to high acidity. All right. So I'd call this guy medium.
Oh, would you?
In the warmer,
Okay.
it's certainly there,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't say it's a wine that makes me think this is tart and I need something to
Okay.
manage it with food, right?
Okay.
And alcohol content up to 15%. We're at 15%. All right.
Yes.
It's right across the board. All right. And the next one. All right. Petite Sirah. So also originates from the same region as Syrah. Much smaller grape. So Petite Sirah, the smaller grape version of Syrah, but they did us the favor also spelling Syrah differently. It's wonderful when you're in the wine world. This is a crossbreed. Syrah is part of this, right? Syrah then crossed back up in the mountains from its origin with Peloursin, a rare French grape from the Alpine regions and the Rhone region. So back where Syrah was its origin from two different grapes,
Mhm.
it then crossed over again to a different grape from that same region and made Petite Sirah. It's called Durif in France.
Okay, not Kaye.
It's the street
Yeah.
that it was originated on.
So Peloursin, does that exist still? Or is that just,
I have no idea.
okay.
Like it's so
Nobody uses it.
obscure, it's just not even, there's no information about it. I'm sure if we traveled over there, we could find someone and that would be awesome.
Okay.
But the thing is, when you think about it,
I mean, if
Is it
it were
gonna-
good, we,
right,
Here,
if it
come
was as good, it would have come
Yeah.
about. So the thing about Petite Sirah, it says small in the name, but it is a huge, dark, beastie wine.
because it's a small grape,
Small grapes, so you
but a
have,
big flavor.
right, so you have more skin
Mhm.
per amount of juice.
Mhm.
And they tend to be very thick skinned. Thicker the skin, more flavor, more color, more tannin, right? So Petite Sirah is a huge wine.
Mhm.
There we go.
Ready?
Yes. So flavors in
here's
Petite
Petite
Sirah,
Sirah.
sugar plum, blueberry, again, you can see they're related.
Mhm.
Black pepper versus the green
Mhm.
and black tea.
What did you say do we know the percentages? I don't remember.
Yes, 85-15.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So dry, yes, full bodied, off the charts, high tannin, off the charts unless you tame it down, need some oak to tame it. Medium acidity, yeah, so the Syrah tends to have more acidity than Petite Sirah. And then over 15%, like it gets plenty of sugar in there, so you can make a huge wine out of this. I can only imagine what an Australian 100% Petite Sirah would be like.
Let's go there and find out.
I would love it. All right.
You would love it? Have you seen their spiders?
I don't like that. No one likes spiders. All right, so origin is all here, right? So here is the Rhone Valley, where I talked about this. This is where Syrah tends to be a little more elegant and lighter, cooler growth. Down here, it's got a little more intensity. Petite Sirah and Syrah, both their origin is here in the Alpine regions to the east of the Rhone.
No, it's interesting where you are circling because you're circling in an area that they're showing no grape growing. Like when you were going over here, so they don't grow at pretty much anything there anymore.
They don't grow anything that has international renown,
Okay,
right? So they've got to be growing things there. That is the origin of these.
right.
So they clearly were. I'm sure they are.
I was just wondering if like over the hundreds of years, it like, I don't know, got too wet or got too I don't know, warm or whatever.
That is more than I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
ready?
Yes. All right, so what are we talking about here? We're talking about a grape with both grapes, a lot of intensity toward the outer edge.
And they're both dark skinned or white flesh.
Yes,
Dark
both of them
skin.
black skinned, white fleshed,
Mhm.
right? Thicker skin and thicker skin, right? Thick skin and thicker skin.
So we have thick skin for Syrah. And
Right.
thicker skin for Petite Sirah.
Yes,
Even though it sounds like it should be the opposite.
right.
All right.
Syrah with the thick skin, not the thicker skin, still retains a little more intensity in the intermediate zone to keep some acidity. But the Petite Sirah tends to give that up and really put it all toward the outside of the grape. All right. Here, where are we?
Let me ask a question. So because it puts it toward the outside of the grape and mostly in the skin. So when you're making a Petite Sirah, when you're venting it,
Mhm.
does that mean that you have to like leave the skins in there longer in order to get that flavor?
No,
No.
because there's so much intensity in there, it kind of comes right out.
Oh,
You
okay.
can just, I've never heard anything about longer times
Okay.
to bring it all out.
Okay.
It's pretty much, I make red wine, I give this amount of time of skin contact. And whether it's Cab or Merlot or Syrah, Petite Sirah.
Okay.
Obviously, everyone's going to vary it a little bit
Mhm.
depending on what they want to create, but it's within a range. So we are in the wine growing latitude, right about the middle of the northern wine growing latitude over here on the western side of the United States. Here we are down in the North Coast. And within the North Coast, we're in the Sonoma side, which is much bigger than the Napa side, which I like to kind of go in here. And you can see that Sonoma is much bigger than Napa.
Well, okay, so it is, it's much bigger than Napa. So why is Napa more renowned?
It was first,
Okay. Right.
and honestly, you can grow really good Cabernet Sauvignon in Sonoma as well. It's mostly that it was first.
Okay.
That is a very weighted opinion. All right. People will argue that it is better in Napa. It depends on the grape. No one will argue that you can grow better Pinot Noir in Napa, except for down here, than up here, right? Because this is cooler.
Mhm.
Pinot will not work. Chardonnay will not work as well here.
Okay.
Not as well. You
Okay.
can grow it
Mhm.
as it does over here because
Because-
this is cooler.
The last time we went, we spent more time in Sonoma than
Right.
we did in Napa.
We did.
Right.
Part of that was just because visiting Napa can be a bit of a challenge now because everyone wants to go visit Napa.
That's true.
And
I
it's,
want to be at Disneyland or Disney World.
they,
so-
excuse me, swallowed funny.
Yeah.
They call it Disney World of Wine now.
Oh, do they really?
They do. They
It wasn't
literally, I
the
just
same
read an article
thing.
about it. Yeah, they're calling it the Disney
thinking-
World of Wine.
Hordes of people. tons
That's
of
what it
wine.
is. It's
Yeah.
hordes of people, tons of lines. No one at the wineries really has time to connect with those that know wine or don't, depending on, your expertise. They don't have time to deal with it. They have too
So
many people.
Okay.
Which great for their success. I'm not hating on them, but it is the reality
Mm-hmm.
of the situation, right? Which is why, like, when we head out there, we're heading to a different, more obscure area.
That is true.
All right. So there's a lot of different areas, right, within. So here's Napa. Look at that right there, compared to. I think this gives a better idea of how small Napa is, which grows great wine compared to Sonoma. So General Sonoma, you got Moon Mountain, Knights Valley is famous. You can get really good Cabernet
We can do
Sauvignon
anything
here.
from down.
Alexander Valley, right?
Mhm.
Chalk Hill, Russian River Valley, Green Valley, some amazing locations. Now, this is a combination of some. Right? So they're getting it from around Sonoma, but I just really want to give Sonoma some love tonight. And by the way, Lake County.
Give some love.
So at the northern part where Napa and Sonoma come together, Lake County is no slouch. Except for the times when it allows itself to be a slouch. There's some amazing wines out there.
I was just thinking.
There are some not amazing wines out of there. So
I have a cousin in Lake County, Florida.
Oh.
I don't want to visit.
yeah,
There you go.
there you go. Okay, so cooler climate than Napa. Maritime influence climate is closer to the Pacific Ocean.
So it gets more fog.
It gets more fog, more cooling breezes. Napa does get that effect, thank goodness, to make their wonderful wines, but even more so in Sonoma. Evening fog rolls over the mountains. It dissipates slower in the morning than in Napa to let the sun go at those grapes. So the difference between the daytime high in the 90s in the evening is 30 to 40 degrees in a drop. Right. So why does that matter? It slows down the ripening process, leaves them on the vine longer, and lets them pull up more character from the soil. By the way, 20%, it's 20% longer hang time in Sonoma than Napa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I'm assuming that's an average, right? Because you've got the mountain areas and that kind of a thing in Napa. It's not going to be the same, but 20% on average, longer hang time. I'm going to guess that they're going, versus the valley floor. But
Okay.
wine growing began here in the 1800s, largely Italian varietals. And then we had wonderful prohibition.
And then we switched over to French.
We'll switch over to French because our men had been overseas and fought in the wars. Well, war at that time won, and came back talking about the French varietals. And so everything, when it was replanted, because after all, everything had died, wasn't being tended. They didn't know if prohibition would ever go away.
Except for the ones that were going to church.
Right.
The wines that were being made for church.
For church, right. Which were, they're not the most elegant wines. So they weren't making wonderful things for that. So so when they replanted, they went with the new predisposition for the American palate became French wines. Otherwise, it would have been Italian.
That's a really interesting thing, that because of prohibition, the winemaking in the United States, or the vines in the United States, changed completely.
Completely.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and who knows what it would have meant for the world.
Right.
Right.
True. Mm-hmm.
So next one, please. All right, a little more Sonoma.
This is just Sonoma in general, though. It's
This
not
is Sonoma in general
specific.
because this is Sonoma in general.
Okay.
So, all right. Little more beautiful Sonoma. And on the last one, that is called Gold Ridge soil. And that is a sandstone loam combination of volcanic rock, ash, and eroded bedrock. That is kind of the base soil for what we're dealing with in Sonoma.
That's throughout Sonoma.
Yep.
Okay.
So, all right, Bootleg. Bootleg is the winery, or the wine label in this case. The winery is actually behind the scenes in this.
Okay.
This is a wine project.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
which does not take away from anything. It just is what it is, right? So certain wineries, if they're making a lot of wine, and they have access to some grapes that they really couldn't incorporate in a way that makes sense for their main line. And especially if it excites their winemaker who wants to do a side project, which is exactly what we're talking about here, they will make a side project wine. That's what this is. It's really not very large production, but it's got the backing of a very large wine production company.
Okay.
All right. But really good grapes, really nice, like direct attention of the winemaker.
How many bottles a year?
I don't have that info,
Okay.
but it is not
It's small
particularly
production.
big. It's
Okay.
really not. So it started in 2012. The style is a blend of, they basically want to create the most opulent blend that he can between Napa and Sonoma. So sometimes they blend a little between the two. That tends to be on the other wine, which we had last week, which was the Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot.
Right.
Right. This week is the Syrah, Petite Sirah. That tends, everything I've seen is coming from Sonoma.
Okay.
Okay. Dedicated originally, which the other one's called Bootleg, and has that X-ray picture on it, right? Dedicated to the California.
Do we want, because we mentioned last week's lot, I don't know that everyone was here, so we might want to mention like what last week's, I know you talked about the grapes,
Right.
but the label was an X-ray of someone sneaking clippings
Right.
into the US
Good call.
during Prohibition,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. No, not during the Prohibition,
No.
but whenever they planted, right?
Oh.
So there was a
just
tradition.
stealing the.
Californian wineries, when they began,
Mhm.
there was kind of a tradition of visiting famous French locations, taking a few clippings
Declaring nothing as they came
Yeah,
back
that's right.
into the state.
and sneaking them back. So the other wine in this series is an X-ray picture, as if you were going through the airport now with somebody that has a suitcase with some clippers and some wine.
Yeah, well, now.
clippings, some grape clippings. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that is what this is dedicated to, is, to the origins of these amazing
Right,
grapevines that we have in the US. Which were, might have been a little shady.
that's our tagline.
Right.
You at the US, we might have been a little shady.
Might have been a little shady. All right, winemaker Gabriel Valenzuela.
That's the student.
That's him. Is in charge of bringing the vision, all of this vision to life, this opulence and kind of the best of what we brought over, right? Born and raised in California, educated at Berkeley. All the best ones are for the viniculture, right? His winemaking style is an unconstrained approach to the best blends from each vintage, best fruit. So he tastes the fruit and he decides what each one needs. For example, the 2017 version of this wine tonight
Mhm.
has Zinfandel. So he
Oh,
added
you
something
mentioned
else.
so earlier.
Yeah,
Huh,
yeah. So, yeah, there's
have
10.
you tasted that one?
No, it's not available to us yet.
Okay, all right, cool.
Which is interesting because they hold it back, so they know this is big and it needs a minute to get ready, right?
Sure.
Which I love that they hold it back, because a lot of companies will just push it out there and say, yeah, drink it young, you don't care.
So we have the 2016.
Yes,
This is what's available now.
right.
So next year, you're anticipating the 2017 and 2024?
No, I think it's going to come this year.
Oh, okay,
Mhm.
all right.
I think it's a matter of buying out all that's there and
Okay.
having them bring it in.
Okay.
Is my guess. This is with a really big distributor, but this is not a big product.
Mhm.
There's not a lot made.
Mhm.
So it's one of my favorite ones, because I go in and I find these wonderful brands within their portfolio. And I'm able to bring them in. We kind of end up being the dominant supplier in the state. for
Awesome.
Some wonderful, cool wines.
I love it.
Anyway. So, anyway, let's see here. I'm thinking about Bootleg. This is Gabriel. I think about Bootleg as the Jimi Hendrix version of the national anthem, unconstrained, but still incredible. Right. This project is
I
made,
mean, that's a big thing to compare yourself to. I mean,
right, it is,
obviously.
like, you've got to step up. Though, I will say, I think everyone was very happy last week, and I hope they're all happy this week. We'll
Mhm.
talk about it in a moment and find out. The power behind the power. So the company making this,
Mhm.
making it possible,
Mhm.
is the Jackson family wineries, Kendall Jackson.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, no wonder they don't have their name anymore on it.
All right, so, yeah, right, so keeping that in, I understand Kendall Jackson, but
There's a lot.
they make a lot of very casual drinking wine, right? But they know wine. And they have a ton, if you look at their portfolio, Jackson Family Estates,
Mhm.
they have amazing wines in their portfolio. All right, so this is they
It's
know how to make amazing
just that
wine.
they
They
have-
also know that you're gonna
For the
pay the
mix.
bills with certain wines.
Sure, okay.
So, but it is, I always love it when you see it, like, it's almost like peeling the mask back. I'm Kendall Jackson. You're like, no, you're not. It's okay.
All right,
It's okay. They know their stuff.
okay.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna name a company, but there we go. We know, sometimes
Yeah.
like, yeah, all right, anyway.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, I like pointing it out because I mean, we've had some amazing Clos du Bois right? Some of their single vineyard projects
Sure,
and that kind of a
sure.
thing. So, and yet there's other Clos de Bois, right? So it's okay, they make, keep the lights on with these wines,
That's right,
but
yeah.
it doesn't mean they don't know good wine.
Right.
And so honestly, I could have kept that information back, but I kind of like putting it out there
No,
to show that there's a soul, there's something going on here. They know how to make good wine. They know what good wine is. And yet they also know that a lot of people want a casual drinker and they just grab and go, and that's okay too.
Yep,
Okay,
I'm just, yep.
yes,
Mhm.
all right,
Next,
yes.
all right.
So this wine, what we're,
Wait, do we wanna do like impressions?
yeah, let's go talk about the wine.
Because we've been on the slides for a while now. So what are you eating with it? What are your any other tasting notes or questions or anything like that before we do the scores?
We had two different dinners going on. Brad and David had steak. And Cindy and I had mushroom ravioli with an Alfredo sauce.
Chicken.
Oh,
nice.
okay, that too.
And how did they pair?
Very nice.
Well.
I mean, very nice.
Very well.
Mm-hmm.
I made salad and.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we had like
green
salad and green beans to go with it.
Nice.
Yeah. Awesome.
I like your
What
description
did
about.
And Rachel, I said you had to say something about.
I'm
it.
gonna say something right now. Well, first of all, I like your description about the choice number 1 or choice number 2. Like the finish on, and I definitely picked your number 2. I felt like there's nothing dried or old fruit. That doesn't sound appropriate.
It's fresh.
Right. It was very fruity and that way, but not in a sweet way, because we would not have liked that. But I also think that if I didn't know anything and I walked into a store and I looked at this, especially if I read graphic novels, I think that there's a lot of appeal in this art.
Yeah.
And I think that like draws, I think that's a great way to draw people to that wine.
Yeah.
So it makes me look, and it makes me not only look at it, but also think of the title. I think it's very clever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I love this label. The only worry for me is that sometimes, and we mentioned this last week, sometimes when the label is really cool, the wine is really not.
Right.
So it's just a marketing thing, but this happens to both be very, so.
I agree.
Mhm.
I will say real quick about the wine label. I like the wine label itself. I think what gives me pause is the combo of like really hip stylized label and then not a lot of information on the back, because that's when I go like, is this a bad wine that looks cool and that's why they're selling it this way?
Yeah,
Whereas if it has like a really cool label and you flip around to the back and then it tells you all the details, I was like, oh, okay, this has like, what's the Leo DiCaprio meme, first you had my, was it like you got my interest, but now I'm, whatever. The thing from whatever.
I
Anyway.
know.
Bait and switch.
Yeah. And but first you had my curiosity, now you have my attention. That's what it is.
Right.
Anyway, so like, but the wine is like so much better than just like, it's a red blend with a funny label. It's like,
right.
it's a lot better than that. We had a mole enchiladas tonight. So a mole
Nice.
sauce over chorizo black bean enchiladas. It went great.
Yeah,
I think the spiciness from the food, it's not spicy, but the spiciness from the food plus like the chocolatiness from the mole and stuff like that. Really worked well with that. They just like perfectly like complement each other.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there is, and especially even as it lays out more, like the chocolate is starting to come out. Yeah, it's really good. Well, in my opinion.
We had broiled pork chops with garlic and rosemary. And
Oh,
moved on to chocolate truffles and peanut butter cups.
oh, so
And
how-
all of them passed. Yes, they're all good.
All right,
all right, awesome.
nice.
I know John made something to go along with it, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
no,
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
All right, so I've been elected the spokesperson. We have a couple of things. So we had burgers, we had beef burgers, we had bison burgers, and we had vegetarian burgers. So we got to sample a bunch of different things with blue cheese and onion jam. So that was all very good with it. But what's interesting is we also had chocolate covered strawberry candies and chocolate covered cranberries that all three of them did different things with the wine. And we all three had we all of us had different opinions about what we liked best. So it was really interesting for us to be doing that. Now, the second part of our commentary is that you mentioned that the 2017 is coming out into production and stuff like that. So we looked it up. And what's very interesting is that the 2017 is a completely different blend. And oops, I just lost it. So we're very interested if you think you're going to be able to get the 17, because it's Petite Sirah, Syrah, Zinfandel, Cabernet Sauvignon, Grenache, and Petit Verdot is the 17. So we're like, it can't possibly taste the same, but it would be very interesting.
So you knew about the Zin. Did you know
Yeah,
that?
no, I didn't see the rest in the listing of what I was reading. I was on their own website and they ended it at Zen.
That's
So,
this is on their website. So
yeah.
it's interesting. So we were just
No,
saying we would
yeah.
love to be
By the way,
able.
not the first time that I've been on a winemaker's website and seen two different things in two different locations.
We went to several different ones.
So, but I agree with you. I am because here's the thing. I've really enjoyed both of these wines. I am up for the next vintage to see what's going on, you know.
Right.
I'm looking forward to seeing when they come in, and I will keep buying the 16 until it's gone, and then maybe get them to bring that 17 in. So
Yeah.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
what we're saying is that we think we should get some bottles of the 16 so that when the 17 comes out,
We can compare.
that we can compare.
Compare,
knowing
yeah,
that-
keep some back. I like that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
knowing that it's completely different.
Maybe we should keep some back, like as a store to do a comparison.
We like that idea.
Oh.
Jeff is sitting there thinking, I don't want to sit in inventory.
I'm like, no, I'll just sit on that then. Okay.
My father will not be happy.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Or can just.
Anyway, hopefully it's about to switch, so we'll see what happens. But this is anyway, we'll talk about this after the
Okay.
recording. But yeah, I agree. I am intrigued enough and impressed enough with these wines
Mhm.
that I intend to hang out with them, support the brand, and move forward. And I'm looking forward to the new vintage, see what they present. So,
Sounds good.
all right.
Just wait time. All right.
Yeah. And we're off. So ratings on these. All right. So we're talking about the outstanding level,
Mhm.
right? So like I always say, there's going to be a glut of wines that are in, and honestly, Elizabeth was the best at saying this. I always say, she said it better than me, and I'm beginning to steal her words. That's what we do. But 90 plus, because winemakers pay to have them reviewed usually. And so they're going to put something forward, even if they're not paying, that they expect to get a good outcome from. So also, we're dealing with a large backer in here, right? The Jackson family. So they can certainly put it out there, and they knew what they were making. They knew they were getting good grapes. They knew they had a great
Right.
winemaker on
They're
it.
clearly not submitting every single wine that they make.
Right. This is a special project that they knew they were proud of.
Right.
And they put it in there. So
Right.
it was rated outstanding. That really doesn't shock me, but it doesn't mean you have to think that. But when assessing, take a look at the price point, the location, and the grapes, and kind of put it together. And then the umbrella thought is, how much did you enjoy it, right? So take that umbrella thought and then adjust it with the other aspects, right? Because if you spent $500 on this bottle, you would have different expectations
Absolutely.
from $5 a bottle. So just, keep it all in mind there. It all matters, right? And this is an amalgamation of all of those thoughts.
For me, $5 bottle, I would think, well, I can get drunk with this. That would be it. That would be my expectation.
That's fair.
That would
That's
be it.
fair.
Yeah.
And expect a good headache.
500, I would have much more expectations.
All right. So keeping the eye. So here we go.
All right, so we'll stop the share moment and we'll let the ratings roll in and share those. Let's see. We have 92 from both Chris and Robin, which may be the highest rating they have ever given anything.
I don't know. No, but this is a good one.
Okay, all right. 94 across the board for Laura, John, Linda, and Brenda, except for John because but he's not asleep in the background, which we have had in the past. So, you know,
Right.
okay, 92 for Jerry. Rachel's typing. Waiting for Cheryl and Consuelo. 93 for all of you or just for you, Rachel?
Just
For Rachel. Okay.
okay.
All right. She didn't even ask what they're.
I know she doesn't
before
care.
She typed.
You know, evidently, if she doesn't care, we don't have to care.
She's like,
That's
whatever.
right.
I'm the one in control of the keyboard. Yep.
Right. All right.
All right. So I was gonna say 92.5 actually.
Okay.
92.5. Yeah.
Excellent.
The more I drink.
So,
the
by the way,
better.
there's fair. That is fair.
Mhm.
Also, I will point out, like, everyone was up in the realm, right? We're all in that outstanding realm. Really nice
They
wine.
just like skewed the scores
yeah,
down.
that's right, fair.
From there, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
that's all.
so got 287.
87, which is
Moved the
well-made
needle.
wine.
Yep.
That's fine.
Yep.
Yeah, I see the B and the S before the 87. I might agree. So, and ah,
That was pretty good.
thank you.
I like that.
I agree. Anyway, all right. So there we go. So we're pushing it. Right. This is a very well-made wine. It's very enjoyable. And I happen to agree, which is why I brought it in. Honestly, when I brought this in, this one, in order to get the price point appropriate for what I could offer the best price for everybody, you had to bring in 3 cases. So I brought in last week 2 cases of the other wine and one of these because I was intrigued, but I hadn't gotten to taste this one. So I brought just 1 case in because the 3 case was the deal
Right,
to allow me to give the best price to you guys.
yeah.
And then I popped a bottle because I thought it's probably going to be great. And it was no intention of making it a wine of the week until I tasted it. And then I thought this is actually quite delicious. So
I may like this better than last one's.
interesting.
Yeah, which is surprising.
It is surprising since you would generally think Cabernet Sauvignon dominant would be your
Yeah.
number one.
Yeah, we'll see.
But
Very
Syrah,
surprising.
Petite Sirah is a beast, baby.
All right. So we have any last questions, comments, anything before we reveal next week's wine? Okay, looks like Robin has a question.
Yeah, no, not a question. So when you all were talking about like fruit and chocolate and whatnot, I was like, I have all of those things in the fridge. Let me bring stuff back and try it. So our verdict was dark chocolate and blackberry. We didn't have too much of I don't think it really helped with the wine. Strawberry was great with it though. I think it brought out more, of the like smoky herbiness, and like Chris said, like brought down some of the fruit flavors. So I think that was a nice like change of pace for it, brought out some nuances.
Thank you, because I'll go directly for the strawberries then.
There we go.
Yeah,
We have some of those.
yeah, we do.
All right, excellent.
Awesome.
Great feedback.
Okay, were you able to accommodate what I asked for the next wine thing? For the next wine?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yes, I was. It was a scramble,
okay,
but yes.
all right. Okay,
Yes, this was a special request, even though we have to thank our sources first.
oh, we do. Oh, okay.
So anyway, Wine Folly, always amazing resource for wine, everybody. If you ever want to go beyond the old Hefster, go to Wine Folly, 750.com, Wikipedia, wine.com, sonomacounty.com. And then there is always bootlegwines.com, which we had last week as
Is
well.
it Sonoma County or Sonoma?
It's Sonoma County, oddly, even though they are Sonoma County.
Alright,
Yeah.
alright. Next.
All right, next. So next week's wine, we are going old world on this. We are going to stay with the Syrah grape,
Okay,
but we're going to the cooler growth. We're going to go to the Northern Rhone Crozes Hermitage designation. Crozes Hermitage is the side of a mountain. Nuance, character, power, elegance, a very distinctive, wonderful old world expression of Syrah. In fact, you know, I've had this wine, as I do all of them, but this one, so we had a Crozes Hermitage over a year ago, and it was delicious, but it was actually more New World in flavoring than I expected.
okay.
I had the previous vintage. Like, why would you expect that much of a change, right? They must have had a warm.
So you've
rum
had
to-
this vintage.
I've had this vintage, this wine,
Mhm.
this one. This is the nuanced old world beastie that I want to share.
Okay,
All right, to
Awesome.
show that this is what happens when Syrah is grown cool,
okay.
right?
I'm looking forward to that because my request was what was it? The pig smoking a cigar.
Pig smoking a cigar in a dirty barn, yeah.
I didn't say
So-
dirty barn. I didn't remember that one,
Right.
but yeah.
Yeah,
It was Jake's description that I was
Yeah.
like,
yeah, in a
hey,
barn.
yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I don't want to get too much into what we
No,
expect
no,
to
no, no.
taste,
Jim
but
just texted me today and he said, hey, did you tell me that I'm forbidden to do a white next week? And or did I dream that? And I was like, no, I said, no white next week.
we're doing a white the next week, and it's really good, so
The following
the
week?
following week.
All right. Why didn't you tell people that? You should just be like, it's gonna be a surprise every time you do white grade.
White wine is real wine.
You needed white education too. That
right.
sounds
But
awful.
next week,
Great.
we're doing a
Great.
Crozes Hermitage. All right.
All right.
And it lives up to that Hermitage style. Yeah.
Looking forward to
Yeah,
that.
a little,
All right.
little dirty and peppery, yeah. Okay. It is, I'm not even being crazy.
Okay, okay.
All right, so.
All right. So any last things before we stop the share and go into the after party?
That's right.
We lost Paul at some point.
That's right.
He's here.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us with this, I think, wonderful wine,
Fantastic.
Prequel. All right.
All right. Cheers,
See you
everyone.
next week.
There's y'all.